It's the Brahmas and the Defenders, basically a pick 'em here. San Antonio, the short favorite at 1. Some shops get them at 1.5. Total 42.5. But check the forecast. DC Sunday looks miserable. 90% chance of rain throughout the day. Kind of remind you of that XFL North Championship game, Zook. Hey, that's nothing the beer snake can't handle. Nothing builds character more than standing in the rain for your team, drinking beers. Got to do what you got to do, right? So let's lead off with the Brahmas offense against DC's defense. This is a rematch, but it's going to have a different feel, right? This is totally different on this side of the ball because back in week 1, it was Chase Garbers pulling the trigger for this offense. Now it's Quentin Dormady. Quentin Dormady. My worst nightmare. You ruined our perfect season. And I hyped up this St. Louis game a lot last week. It fell flat on my face. But if you're looking for bulletin board material, we're coming for you, Q. You're a good guy. You've been on the show before. But I'm praying on your downfall this week, buddy. I need that one back. That was a 37-36 win on April Fool's Day, might I add. The sickest April Fool's joke anyone's ever played on me. My team was 7-0, and I lose to the Guardians. So it's time to get some payback, and they can do that. The defensive line was probably the lone bright spot against St. Louis for DC. They actually held St. Louis to under 100 rushing, which nobody had done, surprisingly, in the last 3 games that the Battlehawks played. I thought Malik Fisher was a guy that popped off the tape. He was excellent. I mean, Fisher, 3 sacks, forced fumble recovery. It's not going to be easy this week against a San Antonio offensive line who has only allowed 5 sacks in 5 games. That is insane. Andre Gurode, hats off to you. The San Antonio offensive line coach might be in the running for assistant coach of the year here. What a group. Then they have 3 day 1 starters on the IR up front. So to absolutely nobody's surprise, A.J. Smith and his offense throwing it on 62% of play calls. They did lean on the run, though, a little bit last week. They racked up 175 on the ground with the 2-headed monster of Lovett and Ellison, who I love. I love Lovett, and I love Ellison. I think they are dynamic back there, and this is the type of game where a lot of DC fans are going to scratch their head thinking, how the hell don't we have one of these guys? Like go get somebody. These guys were both free agents at one point. Quentin Dormady did toss 3 interceptions against Arlington last week. That was kind of a red flag, but I guess one of them wasn't really on him, tip ball. By the way, San Antonio signs Jaden DeLaura at quarterback. Anyone remember that name? If you watch college football, you do. Started for the Arizona Wildcats. I watched so many games. I watched him come back. I think it was a game against, was it Washington or Oregon in his junior year, and they were down. They were up, they were like a 20-point dog in that game, and they knock off a top 10 team, and DeLaura just went absolutely crazy for that offense. They played Mississippi State last year. He had a heroic run that was called short. I put it on my Twitter if you want to check it out, but he has had some controversy with some sexual assault allegations that people are talking about. Nothing has, I don't think, come of it. They were back in his high school days, and we'll continue to monitor that. But, yeah, Jaden DeLaura is a new signing for the Brahmas, and, yeah, that is interesting. I don't know. But if you watch him play, he's a gamer. And if you ask Arizona fans, they'll probably tell you that when he went out with an injury and the backup came in, they actually got better because he plays insane. I mean, he plays where it's either going to be a 90-yard touchdown or a pick six every drop back. But it is an interesting signing. The rain, if it does come down, is probably going to help DC here because the Brahmas will throw it less in that situation, and DC is the worst-ranked pass defense in the league now for the 2nd year in a row. They still went 9-1 with that last year. I have no idea how. It just thank Greg Williams for being able to get sacks and takeaways. And how about DJ Swearinger? Release. That's a hard pill to swallow. Hakeem Butler might have ended a career here. And hats off to DJ Swearinger, has done more than enough in his football career over the last 11 years. Just a guy that a lot of people will have a lot to say about, and was 32 years old, playing out there, starting at safety all 5 games for DC, and he gets cut mid-season. He said on his Instagram he would have loved to finish the season, but enter Kentrell Bryce, who started for DC all of last year and was cut. And I thought that was a surprising cut. He's now coming back to add some depth to that safety room, along with Deontay Anderson and Santos Ramirez, and I think you're getting Monte Nicholson back as well. So slight edge to the Brahmas offense. I do expect DC's defense to bounce back, and they'll give up half of the 45 points that they gave up last week. Running through the DC offense, you would think these rain games would technically benefit Fred Keiss and his scheme. You saw DC grind teams down with Abram Smith in these rain spots last year. I don't know if they could do that this year. The O-line is certainly going to have to step up. And I know there were some concerns from Coach Keiss. When I went back and rewatched the broadcast about the offensive line, he was telling them to calm down. They're missing their assignment. Seemed like they weren't on the same page. They definitely didn't run block well, but I'll give it to them in pass protection, only 2 sacks. So Jordan seems to be staying upright. He's only taken 9 sacks this season, and on the contrary, Case Cookis has taken 25. So they've done an all right job. That has a lot to do with Jordan's mobility as well. So, a couple of things that must improve for the DC defenders to have a chance here. You got to do better than 3.4 yards a carry. And when you do score in the red zone, you have to start getting these 2-point tries. I think most of you would be surprised to hear DC on the 2-pointers this year, 3 for 9. That's not going to cut it. There's 12 points right there that could have swung some of these huge close games that they were in. And I don't know how they're so good in their red zone offense, but they just can't convert these 2s. And then I thought, oh wait, De'Ara King. That's what it is. You could quantify missing Abram Smith to less production in the run game. You could quantify missing De'Ara King to less production on 2-point conversions. It's just how it goes. They didn't find guys to replace these 2. DC didn't score a touchdown in week 1 on San Antonio. They did have 2 called back for penalties. So ultimately, I don't think we're going to get the weird stuff that we got in week 1, right? I don't see the Brahmas launching a 70-yard touchdown pass on a fake field goal to a center. If that happens again, I'm done. We're not having a show. I think this will be an old-school slugfest type of game. DC trying to run it. Brahmas with that monster front 7. You think about going head-to-head with guys like Devontae Beckett and Jordan Williams, who AJ just pointed out in the interview. Much like the DC defense, I think the offense will find their rhythm and bounce back a little this week. I expect right around 100 rushing yards, maybe a little more when you add in Jordan. But San Antonio's pass rush, 17 sacks. That's second best in the league. That's that side of the ball. It's really tough to find an edge when you look at these 2. I know San Antonio defense probably better on paper, and that's what Zook's going to tell me when he picks the Brahmas. But I don't know. DC's not going to have 2 punts blocked and throw an interception in the first 8 minutes of the game and spot San Antonio 17 points like they did. That's just not going to happen. That was the problem last week. So you got to be better on 3rd and long. You got to find some vertical passing threats. Maybe it's Kelvin Harmon. So DC is the pick, as always, for me here, Zook. I'll always pick them in a. Can't get swept by San Antonio. Cannot do it. Not at this point with your back against the wall. And you really can't lose twice at home. This is a bounce back spot. It has to be. Right? This is the perfect bounce back spot. Let me cope.
Whatever you want to call it. Brahmas. Easy pick.
Have you picked DC once this year? I mean, come on.